Welcome, everyone, to the International World Podcast. My name is Marian Jacobo. We are so glad to have you here listening to us on our first episode ever, where we are going to talk about the most famous governmental institution around the world, the United Nations. I would like to introduce my collaborator to bring you this interesting podcast. Welcome, Carlita.
Thanks, Marian. My name is Carlos Serrano, and I'm so glad to be here. Let's begin with our first guest, who will explain the context in which the UN was created.
Hello, my name is Silvia Rox. I'm the resident coordinator in the United Nations team, and I would like to tell you that the birth of this institution was difficult and from a past history which has changed the world. A few months after the end of the Second World, specifically in 1945, the Charter of the United Nations was signed by 51 countries with the purpose of founding an organization that will prevent wars, whose main objectives were to preserve peace and international security, thereby creating the United Nations. Its president is the Federal League of Nations, created with the Treaty of Versailles in 1919 after the First World War. To date, 193 countries are members of our assembly.
It was definitely a history where we could learn a lot. Thanks. Marianne, who is our next guest?
Well, I have Angela Kane, who is working under Secretary General for Management in the UN. Welcome, Angela, and thanks for being here with us. We would like to know some of the main achievements that the UN has accomplished.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I am very pleased to be here. Well, I would like to start by saying that the UN, as an international institution, is essential to have a common international legal framework. In this way, it acts as a mechanism to set out disagreements without recurring to war. So one of the biggest contributions of the UN in international law is the arbitration, the standards, and the tribunals that attend different kinds of conflicts, which benefits all of us. Another achievement that we are very proud of is the adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948. Its adoption recognized human rights to be the foundation for freedom, security, justice, and peace for anyone, independently of their nationality, sex, gender, religion, culture, or any other kind of distinction. Also, the adoption of two international covenants in 1966 constitutes a structural change in the treatment of human rights in the international community, because of the conception of norms and protocols that impose legal obligations on member states. I would like to say many other achievements, but to conclude, the creation of funds and programs specialized in various kinds of humanitarian and development work have been reflected in raising the quality of life of many people.
Thank you, Angela. Now we have Laurie King, who is an international relations expert. Welcome. We are talking about different topics regarding the UN. What do you consider are the main failures of this organization?
The Rwandan genocide is a key situation from which some of the failures of the UN can be identified. First, when the genocide began, the UN Security Council decided to keep the word genocide out of the discussion. By failing to recognize that the situation in Rwanda was genocide in every sense of the word, the UN became in part responsible for concealing and minimizing the magnitude of suffering among the Rwandan people. Consequently, UN peacekeeping efforts took a long time to implement. Second, the United States and France pressured the UN to withdraw the peacekeepers from Rwandan territory, leaving the country totally helpless of the international protection that this organization should carry out. Before withdrawing them, the Blue Helmets were protecting 25,000 people. When they left, only 270 were left. Thus, it is clear that another failure is definitely the UN structure itself, where the superpowers directly affect the decision-making process that was supposed to be impartial. Third, the UN failed in its attempts to make a peace agreement between the Rwandan government and the Rwandan Patriotic Front with the Arusha Accords. This agreement looked specifically at the military demobilization and reintegration, but it wasn't fully supported. The international community and the UN failed to raise funds to support the demobilization program.
I am very pleased to inform you all that for the conclusion of this amazing podcast, Lori will give us a theoretical analysis of the actions of the UN in one specific conflict.
Sure. First, we need to remember that, according to the idealist theory, it is necessary to adopt an international system of collective security, guaranteeing the protection of its members against the armed aggression of any of the other subscribers. The UN is the materialization of this organization, whose purpose is to maintain peace among nations by mediating between them. For example, the UN has condemned the multiple violations of human rights by the State of Israel and has issued more than 15 resolutions in this regard, which were expected to solve the Arab-Israeli dispute. But sadly, it has been the opposite. It should be noted that one of the principles of the Charter of the UN is the sovereignty of the states and the respect for their territorial integrity and political independence. Consequently, the UN is limited and can only issue recommendations, so it can be said that it has failed in its task of diffusing conflicts and that another of its limitations is nationalism.
Wow, that was an excellent explanation. In these last minutes, we would like to know what is the role of the international organizations when it comes to mediate conflicts?
In an increasingly interconnected world, a product of globalization, traits are transformed, acquiring a more complex and diffuse character, crossing borders and increasing their danger. This situation is producing a change in the traditional approach to security. In other words, a conflict that arises in any area of the planet has almost certainly repercussions that affect our security. For this reason, and to respond to these transformations, the different international organizations play a fundamental role as they are trying to adapt their instrument for crisis management and conflict resolution.
Thank you very much to our guests for being here. And thanks to everyone listening. We are looking forward to keeping you informed. Until next time.